Hi guys, welcome back. So back to school season is just around the corner, my absolute favorite time of the year, and at this point in my life I'm just about to finish up my first year of university. I've kind of figured out what tips and tricks have helped me to be able to achieve amazing grades. Like, I'm really proud of my grades. It's something I really work hard towards, and my last semester was actually the best semester I've ever had in terms of education my entire life, and I really honed in on what particular things I did last semester to be able to get me those results that I want to share with you guys today in case you need some help with your upcoming semesters. So if you're interested to hear what I've got to say, then please keep watching. Okay, so the first tip that I have for you guys is to get an agenda that works for you. Now, I cannot emphasize how important this is because, I don't know, it doesn't really matter what grade or what level of education you're at. You have things besides school going on, whether you have a job or your friends or your family or relationships or whatever. So I went through multiple agendas. I tried the daily ones, I tried the weekly ones, and I tried the monthly ones. And the one that I found that worked the best for me was the monthly one, because the daily one I felt like didn't give me well enough an idea of what was upcoming. It would just be really that specific day, and I like to know in advance things that are coming up, so that didn't work for me. And the weekly one was not too bad, but I just found it was kind of heavy because there's so much like they're quite thick, the weekly ones. So I decided that the best one for me was a monthly one, and I have one here I want to show you guys. And this is what it looks like. It's just a basic monthly calendar, and if I just show you guys an example of what the middle of my last semester looked like when it was like the peak of the semester, this is what it looked like. I hope you guys can see this. I had so much stuff going on. Can you imagine if I had all of this just in my brain and not written down somewhere? I would lose track of everything. So this has, I work 2 jobs, so this has both those jobs on here. It has my YouTube commitments, my blog commitments, it has my family commitments, my friend commitments, etc., etc. So definitely get an agenda that suits your needs. Now, I'm someone who really likes to know what my month looks like, know everything in advance, so this kind of calendar really worked for me. And the best thing is it's so light because, like, look how thin this is, and it's cheap too. Like, this one cost me $7, although I got it at the end of season. Agendas are super expensive also. Honestly, some of them are upwards of like $30, which is just ridiculous. So make your own if you really can't find one that suits your needs, and just put into it exactly what you know that you will use. If not, try out the different agendas and just really see which one works, because they're so important. I cannot emphasize that enough. The second tip I have for you guys is to take effective notes. Now, I am that friend that everyone, or that the people I know, come to at the end of the semester when exam times are right around the corner, and they're like, "Mary, can we please borrow your notes?" And listen, I don't mind sharing my notes with you if I noticed or I know that you do take notes throughout the semester and that you are making an effort to learn the material, but maybe you just aren't that skilled yet in taking effective notes for yourself, and so looking at mine will help you. In that case, sure, I'll give you my notes because I know that you did the work. But if you didn't do the work at all and you're just asking for my notes, then you could go, because I'm not going to give my notes to you. Now, I want to share with you guys some of the tips of how I take my notes that might make them more clear for you when you take them that way for yourself. So here's just like a sample. I haven't been in school for a while, so I don't even know the information, but here's a sample of what a page in my notebook would look like. So at the top of the page, obviously I put the date of the lecture, and then the first thing I write at the top in bold is what is the topic of that lecture for that day. Because you know when you're scrolling back and you're like, oh, I need to study like everything that we learned about feedback, for example. So I'm scrolling through the papers until I find feedback, and if that's at the top, it'll be much easier for me to find. And then if the lecture is talking about feedback and is talking about subcategories, so feedback in families, feedback in the corporate world, feedback with youth, feedback with the elderly, etc., etc., all different kinds of topics, I will write each topic down in a different color in different parts of the paper, and then all the information pertaining to that topic I'll write right underneath it. So if you can see here, I had the 4 different categories in orange, green, purple, and blue. And then the black that I used for the original title is the color that I used to write in the subnotes underneath the subcategories. So I hope that this kind of helps you. Apply this to whatever grade you're in, whatever topic you're learning. What the point of the lecture is that day, write it at the top, and then divide up the rest of your paper so that you can recognize ideas. The way that I remember notes, like if I have an exam and they're asking me how do you deliver feedback to a family, for example, I remember how the paper looks, and then I remember, okay, family was in the top corner and it was written in orange, and I kind of am able to remember what information I wrote in that part of the page. Now that's just how my brain works. I don't know how yours works, but definitely take your notes in a way that are effective. Otherwise, it's pointless for you to take notes. The second thing that I want to talk about is making sure when you take notes that you're not just copying down everything the teacher is saying, but you're personalizing it. Because, for example, if the teacher put up the definition of feedback and it's a standard definition, just because it's a definition doesn't mean I'm going to understand it. So instead of writing that definition, I'll basically rewrite it in my own words, or I'll write down an example. So that way I recognize what that word means, and I can manipulate that definition to help me in whatever situation I need, you know? So if they're asking me, like, in a multiple choice question, what is the definition of feedback? If I understood the example, I can understand the concept, and I can pick out which definition seems that it would suit the word the best. Or if they're asking me, give me an example of how you deliver feedback in the situation. Again, if you understand what the word really means by using different examples, then you'll easily be able to answer that question. So definitely personalize everything so that you can remember it. That's like the most important thing. Don't just regurgitate what the teacher said or just copy down blindly what she's writing, because you're not going to remember it, you're never going to learn it. So make sure you customize everything. Another tip that I have is that sometimes the teacher talks really fast and you have to take down everything that she's saying. And sometimes you can't keep up and you lose track, and then you're just kind of like screwed up in the middle of the lecture. So what I do is I use certain symbols to take away some words so that it's faster for me to write. So I just made a list here of some of the most common symbols that I use, and it looks like this. So I use 3 dots here to represent therefore, for example, and if I want to write like an increase or a growth or development or something, I'll put an upwards arrow. So I'm just going to insert a picture actually of this sheet so that maybe you guys can take a screenshot if you want, so that when you're making like a symbol key in your notebook or something, you can use some of these if they work for you. But just an example of like where I've used them actually in text. Like here, I hope you can see this, but here I wrote kids may show, and I put an upwards arrow to represent increase or growth, and then the rest of the sentence is in resistance to authority figures. So instead of writing increase, growth, development, or anything like that, I just used an upward arrow and I knew exactly what it meant. So try to do little things like this. It'll make it so much quicker for you and easy for you to recognize, and try to use universal symbols so that if somebody else does need your notes, they can easily understand it as well. Normally I'll just provide a key in case that they don't understand. Another tip that I want to give you guys is to try to find a study buddy, and if I were you, I would keep it to just you and one other person, because I know that whenever I get in groups of more than 2, me included, we just start talking about a whole bunch of other stuff, and really like when I get into the zone, like I'm in the zone, like I just want to study and I want somebody who is as passionate about it as I am. So I have this one friend, and me and like both of us, we talk on the phone every night before the exam, and we study our notes together, and I find it helps so much because sometimes they might use an example to explain something that actually makes more sense to me than the one that I came up with myself, or vice versa. So you're helping each other out. It's really important, but just learn your material on your own first and then come together and discuss it with the other person. Don't expect to learn it all from them, because then you're really only getting 50% of what you could have gotten from that study session. So yeah, find a study buddy, but make sure you do your part, because it's no fun when you try to study with someone who has not studied anything. That's really not fun. That's happened to me multiple times, and it's actually really upsetting because I'm basically teaching them the lecture and getting nothing from the experience myself. The last thing I want to say is give yourself ample time to relax. It is so important that you do that. I mean, I've always been someone who aimed for top of the class like my entire life, and a lot of the times I burnt out. Like many times I had anxiety attacks, panic attacks, I would get asthma attacks. I have really bad asthma, and it's only after I've learned to balance relaxation and friends and family with school and stress that all those attacks, I guess you could say panic attacks, whatever they were, went away. So give yourself ample time. Like every week I like to give myself at least one day where I have no work and no school things to stress about and nothing, and I pick and choose what I want to do that day. It's nothing from outside that's imposed on me. You need at least that one day. Obviously, like, manipulate it to however much you need. If you have a super busy schedule, you might need 2 days, you know, so do whatever you need to do to suit you, but make sure you give yourself a break, because if you don't, you're just going to burn out, and then you're not going to be useful to yourself or to anyone else. And what's the point of that? What's the point of that really in the end? So I hope that these tips helped you guys. I'm so excited to start school. I hope you guys are too. I'd love to know what grade or school level you guys are in, and I know there's different in all different countries, so whatever it is, just let me know what it is and I'll try to Google it to figure out what it is if it's something from outside of Canada. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope some of these tips helped you, and thank you for sticking with me. I'll see you guys around, and if you have any more questions or any other video requests, please leave them in the down bar, and I'll definitely get back. Thank you so much. Bye.